Why was everyone staring at her leg? The morning sun barely kissed the rocky hills of Afghanistan. Chief Petty Officer Jake Martinez felt his radio crackle to life. His SEAL team had been moving through the valley for 3 hours. Their mission was simple: locate a downed pilot, extract before enemy forces arrived. But simple missions rarely stay simple. Contact ahead, 2 clicks north. The whisper came through the comm from Petty Officer Davis. 8 elite Navy SEALs immediately dropped low, scanning the horizon through their scopes. What they found wasn't what they expected. Smoke rose from a small village nestled between 2 hills. The crash site was supposed to be open terrain, but their pilot had managed to glide further than anyone thought possible. Jake signaled his team to spread out as they approached the cluster of mud brick houses. The village seemed almost empty, and that made Jake's stomach tight. In his 12 years as a SEAL, empty villages usually meant one of two things. People had fled because of incoming danger, or they were hiding something. As his team moved house to house, checking for threats, they heard it, a low moan coming from the largest building at the village center. Corpsman Second Class Michael Torres, their medic, was the first through the door. What he saw made him freeze for a split second. A woman lay on a makeshift bed, her left leg clearly broken, bleeding through torn fabric. Her dark hair was matted with sweat and dirt. Her clothes were civilian, a simple dress that had seen better days, but something about her seemed off. "We've got a wounded civilian," Torres called softly into his radio. The woman's eyes fluttered open as she heard voices. She tried to sit up, but immediately fell back with a sharp intake of breath. "Please," she whispered in accented English. "My leg, I cannot move." Jake entered the room with 2 other team members, weapons ready, but lowered. The woman appeared to be in her late 20s, olive skin, striking green eyes that held a mixture of pain and something else Jake couldn't quite identify. A sharpness that seemed unusual for someone in her condition. "What's your name?" Jake asked, kneeling beside Torres as the medic began examining her injuries. "Amara," she replied, her voice weak but steady. "I am from this village. The explosion, it brought down the walls. I was trapped." Torres frowned as he carefully examined her leg. The break was clean, too clean for debris from a collapsed wall. It looked more like the kind of injury you'd see from a tactical fall or combat landing gone wrong. He kept his observations to himself for now, focusing on stopping the bleeding and stabilizing the fracture. "Chief," Davis's voice came through the radio. "No sign of our pilot in the immediate area, but I'm picking up movement about a click to the east. Could be hostiles approaching." Jake's jaw tightened. They had maybe 20 minutes before enemy forces would reach their position. The woman, Amara, watched their faces carefully as they communicated in short coded phrases. Her eyes followed their movements with an awareness that made Torres increasingly uncomfortable. "We need to move," Jake decided. "Torres, can we transport her? Not without serious risk of making the injury worse." Torres replied, "But leaving her here isn't an option if hostiles are coming." Amara's eyes widened with what appeared to be genuine fear. "Please do not leave me. They will kill me if they find me here with you." The desperation in her voice seemed real enough. Jake made the call that would change everything for his team. "We take her with us. Torres, do what you can to stabilize her for transport." As Torres worked, he noticed things that didn't add up. Her hands, while dirty, showed calluses in places consistent with weapons training. Her breathing was controlled despite the obvious pain, the kind of control taught in advanced military or intelligence training. Most telling of all, when she thought no one was looking, her eyes constantly scanned the room, taking in details, position, potential escape routes. "This is going to hurt," Torres warned as he prepared to set a temporary splint. Amara bit down on a piece of cloth and nodded. As he manipulated her leg, she made barely a sound, the kind of pain tolerance that came from serious training, not just village life. The sound of distant gunfire echoed through the valley. Davis's voice came through sharp and urgent. "Contact confirmed, Chief. Multiple hostiles approximately 15 minutes out." Jake stood up, his decision made. "Wilson, Rodriguez, set up a perimeter. Davis, find us an exit route through the back of the village. Santos, help Torres with the civilian." As his team moved into action, Jake noticed something that would stick with him later. When Amara heard him give orders, her eyes had flickered with what looked like professional assessment, as if she were evaluating his tactical decisions rather than simply being grateful for rescue. Torres finished his work as quickly as possible. The splint would hold, but carrying her would slow them down significantly. As Santos prepared to lift her, Amara spoke quietly to Torres. "The men coming," she said, "they are not just Taliban. There are others with them, foreigners. They seek something specific here." "What kind of something?" Torres asked, helping Santos position her for transport. "I do not know," she replied, but her eyes suggested otherwise. "But they killed everyone in the next village looking for it." The team moved out with practiced efficiency, Santos carrying Amara while Torres stayed close to monitor her condition. As they navigated the narrow alleys between houses, she provided directions that were surprisingly accurate and tactically sound, always choosing routes with the best cover and multiple escape options. "Left here," she directed quietly, "then through the courtyard. There is a path down the hillside that cannot be seen from the eastern approach." Jake found himself wondering how a village woman would know such specific details about tactical movement, but there wasn't time to question it now. The sound of approaching vehicles was getting closer, and his priority was getting his team and their unexpected passenger to safety. They reached the edge of the village just as the first enemy truck crested the hill behind them. Torres checked on Amara as they prepared for the difficult descent down the rocky slope. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I will survive," she replied, and something in her tone made Torres look at her more carefully. Despite her obvious pain and the jolting movement of being carried, she remained alert and focused. Her eyes continued to scan their surroundings with the systematic thoroughness of someone trained in reconnaissance. As they began their descent, Amara suddenly tensed in Santos's arms. "Stop," she whispered urgently. "There, in the rocks below, two men waiting." Jake immediately signaled his team to halt and take cover. Through his scope, he could barely make out what she had seen. Two figures positioned perfectly to ambush anyone coming down the path. Her eyesight and tactical awareness were remarkable for a civilian. "How did you spot them?" Davis asked quietly, genuinely impressed. "In my village, we learned to see danger quickly," Amara replied, but Torres caught a slight hesitation in her voice, as if she had almost said something else. The team adjusted their route, taking a more difficult path that avoided the ambush position. Amara's directions continued to be invaluable, guiding them through terrain she seemed to know intimately. But Torres was becoming increasingly convinced that her knowledge went far beyond simple familiarity with local geography. Every instinct told him this woman was more than she appeared to be, and that realization brought both comfort and concern. Because if she wasn't really a civilian, then who was she? And what was she doing in that village? The questions hung in the air like smoke, unanswered, but impossible to ignore. What was she hiding? The descent down the rocky hillside was brutal. Every jarring step made Amara wince, but she never cried out, never complained. Santos adjusted his grip on her, trying to minimize the jolting, but there was only so much he could do on terrain this rough. Torres stayed close, watching her face, her vitals, the way she breathed through the pain. "She's tougher than most soldiers I've treated," he thought, and that thought wouldn't leave him alone. They'd been moving for 40 minutes when Jake called for a brief halt. His team needed water, needed to check their position, needed to breathe for just a moment. Santos carefully lowered Amara against a large boulder. She immediately closed her eyes, not from exhaustion but from concentration. Torres recognized it, the way someone mentally inventories their body, checking systems, assessing damage. It was a military habit, not a civilian one. "Chief," Davis called out softly, "we've got a problem." Jake moved to where Davis was crouched, looking through his scope at the valley below. "What am I seeing?" Jake asked. Davis handed him the scope. "3 vehicles, moving fast along the road we need to cross, and they're not local militia." Jake studied the convoy. The vehicles were too well maintained, the movement too coordinated. This was a professional operation. Amara's voice cut through the quiet. "They are looking for something." The SEALs turned to look at her. She was sitting up now, her green eyes sharp despite the pain medication Tors had given her. "How do you know that?" Jake asked. The question wasn't accusatory, just curious, because I have seen them before, she replied. "They came to my village 2 weeks ago, asking questions, searching houses. They carried maps, technical equipment, not the tools of simple fighters." "What were they looking for?" Rodriguez asked. Amara hesitated, and in that hesitation Tors saw the truth. She knew exactly what they were looking for, but she was deciding how much to tell them. "My cousin," she finally said. "He worked at the American base, translating documents. They believed he stole something. Information, perhaps, or equipment. They killed him when he could not give them what they wanted." The story was plausible, but something about the way she told it felt rehearsed, as if she'd prepared this explanation in advance. Jake studied her face for a long moment, then made a decision. "We need to keep moving. That convoy will sweep this area. We can't be here when they do." As Santos lifted Amara again, she spoke quietly. Only Tors was close enough to hear. "There is something you should know," she said, her accent thickening with emotion. "The men in those vehicles, they are not who you think they are." Tors wanted to ask more, but Jake was already moving the team out. They descended into a narrow ravine that would provide cover from the road above. The going was slower here, harder, but safer. Amara continued to guide them. Her knowledge of the terrain was uncanny, almost as if she'd studied maps of this exact area, memorized every path and hiding spot. 2 hours later, they found a defensible position in a small cave system. Jake posted guards and allowed the rest of his team to rest. Tors immediately went to work checking Amara's leg. The splint had held, but she needed proper medical attention soon. "How bad?" she asked him directly. "Bad enough," he replied honestly. "Another day or two of this and we're looking at permanent damage. Maybe amputation if infection sets in." She nodded, accepting the information without fear. "Then we must move quickly." "That's not your call to make," Tors said gently. "Your job is to heal. Our job is to get you somewhere safe." She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for a moment he saw past the pain and the dirt and the carefully maintained civilian persona. What he saw was a soldier, a professional, someone who understood missions and objectives and acceptable losses. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Really?" Amara smiled, sad and tired. "I am someone who wishes this war was over," she replied. "Someone who has lost too much. Someone who is trying to do the right thing, even when the right thing is complicated." It wasn't an answer, but it was honest, and Tors decided that was enough for now. Jake approached them. "We've got a new problem," he said. "I just made contact with command. The pilot we're looking for is dead, crashed hard, no survivors. The entire mission was for nothing," Rodriguez asked, the frustration clear in his voice. "Not nothing," Jake replied, "but our primary objective is gone. Command wants us to head to the extraction point. Get out of this valley before that convoy boxes us in." "What about her?" Santos nodded toward Amara. "She comes with us," Jake said firmly. "We're not leaving her to those animals." Amara listened to this exchange with an expression Tors couldn't quite read. Gratitude mixed with something else. Guilt maybe, or calculation. "Thank you," she said softly. "You are good men. Better than you know." They rested for 3 hours, taking turns on watch. Tors changed Amara's bandages and gave her more pain medication. She accepted his care with quiet dignity, never complaining, never showing weakness beyond what was absolutely necessary. As he worked, she spoke to him in a low voice. "My name is not really Amara," she said. "Or rather, it is, but it is not the only name I carry." Tors paused, his hand still on her leg. "Go on. I tell you this because you deserve the truth," she said, "and because what is coming will be dangerous. You should know who you are protecting." Tors waited, not pushing, just listening. "I am a captain," she continued, "in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, Special Operations Division. I have been working undercover in this region for 8 months, gathering intelligence on weapons trafficking networks." The confession hung between them. Tors should have been shocked, should have called Jake immediately, but somehow he wasn't surprised. It explained everything: the tactical knowledge, the pain tolerance, the way she assessed situations like a professional soldier. "Does my commander need to know this?" he asked. Eventually, she replied, but not yet, because the convoy's searching for us. They are not looking for your pilot, they are looking for me, and for something I discovered, something that could change everything. Before Torres could respond, gunfire erupted from the mouth of the cave. Davis's voice came through urgent and clipped. Contact, multiple hostiles. Incoming, the team sprang into action with practiced precision, weapons up. Positions taken, Amara tried to sit up, but Torres gently pushed her back down. You stay here, he ordered. Let us handle this. She grabbed his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Listen to me, she said urgently. Those men, they have a Russian advisor with them. A man named Volkov. He is the real threat, former Spetsnaz. He will not stop until he finds what I hid. What did you hide? Torres demanded, but the firefight was intensifying, and Jake was calling for his medic. Torres gave Amara one last look. We're not done with this conversation, he said, then moved to join his team. As he took up a defensive position, he realized something that made his blood run cold. Amara wasn't just a passenger they'd picked up by chance. She was the objective, the real mission, and none of them had known it until now. When did everything change? The firefight lasted 14 minutes, but it felt like hours. Bullets ricocheted off the cave walls, sending rock fragments flying like shrapnel. Davis took a round through his shoulder, not life-threatening, but painful enough to make him grunt through gritted teeth. Rodriguez returned fire with controlled bursts, conserving ammunition, buying time. Jake coordinated the defense with the calm efficiency of a man who'd been in worse situations, but not by much. Fall back, Jake ordered, deeper into the cave system. We need more cover. The team moved in textbook fashion, leapfrogging back, covering each other. Santos and Torres carried Amara between them. She remained silent, focused, her eyes tracking the tactical situation even as pain lanced through her leg with every movement. They reached a junction where the cave split into 3 passages. Jake made a quick decision. Rodriguez, you and Wilson take the left passage. Set up a choke point. Davis, despite your shoulder, you're with Santos on the right. I'll take the center with Torres and our guest. The team split up immediately. No questions, no hesitation. Trust built through years of training and combat. As Jake, Torres, and Amara settled into the central passage, they could hear the enemy probing the cave entrance. Voices in Pashto and Russian, coordinating their approach. Jake listened carefully, counting voices, estimating numbers, at least 15, maybe more. This wasn't a random patrol that stumbled onto them. This was a deliberate, organized hunt. Amara spoke quietly from where she sat against the cave wall. I need to tell you something, she said, before it is too late. Jake glanced at her, then at Torres. Your medic already knows, she continued, but you deserve the truth as well. My name is Captain Amara Hassani, Iranian Revolutionary Guard. I have been operating undercover for 8 months, tracking a weapons trafficking network that spans 3 countries. Jake's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. Torres knew this already, he asked. Just found out. Torres confirmed. About 5 minutes before the shooting started. Jake was quiet for a moment, processing, calculating. Then why are we protecting you, he asked. Not hostile, just direct, because what I discovered, Amara said, it is bigger than nationality, bigger than our country's differences. The network I was tracking. They are planning to sell advanced American drone technology to the highest bidder. Technology stolen from your military base 2 months ago. That got Jake's attention. The tech theft at Kandahar, he said. Command said it was an inside job. It was. Amara confirmed, but not by who you think, your security contractor, a man named Marcus Webb. He sold access codes and security protocols to a criminal named Nazari, a smuggler who works both sides of every conflict. He does not care about politics or ideology, only money. And you found this out how? Jake asked. By infiltrating Nazari's network. Amara replied, by pretending to be a low-level courier, by earning trust over months, by learning things I was never supposed to know. I discovered where Webb was meeting his contact, when the exchange would happen. I was preparing to report it to my commanders when the village was attacked. My cover was compromised. I had to run. And then, she gestured to her leg, this happened. Tors checked her bandages while Jake considered this information. The pieces were starting to fit together. The clean break in her leg, the tactical awareness, the way she'd guided them through the terrain. She'd been running from the same people now hunting them. Tell me about Volkov, Jake said. The Russian. Amara's face hardened. Dmitry Volkov, former Russian special forces, now a mercenary advisor. He works for whoever pays him. Currently, he is training Nazari's men, making them more dangerous, more professional. He is also hunting me because I killed his brother. The confession was matter of fact. No emotion, no regret, just a statement of reality. Jake respected that. In this world you did what you had to do. When, he asked 3 weeks ago, Amara said, his brother was interrogating a captured Afghan translator, a boy, 15 years old. I could not let it continue, so I intervened. The boy lived. The brother did not. Now Volkov has made finding me personal. A shout echoed from the cave entrance. Russian accented English. Come out, we know you are in there. We will give you a chance to surrender. Jake didn't bother responding. They both knew there would be no surrender, no mercy. This was about revenge now, and Volkov would kill them all if he got the chance. Amara reached into her torn dress, pulled out a small device wrapped in plastic. This, she said, holding it out to Jake. This is what they really want. It is a tracker, GPS-enabled, hidden in the stolen drone components. I managed to tag them before my cover was blown. With this, you can locate every piece of stolen technology. Stop the sale before it happens. Jake took the device, studied it. Command needs to know about this, he said. Immediately, I know. Amara replied, but first you need to get out of this cave alive, and I need to tell you something else. Something that will make you angry, but something you must understand. Jake waited. Tors stopped working on her leg. Both men focused entirely on her. The explosion that brought down the building. She said quietly, the one that broke my leg, I caused it. I was destroying evidence of my infiltration, files, communications, anything that could identify other Iranian operatives in the region. I did not expect the entire structure to collapse, did not plan to be trapped, but I made a choice, and I accept the consequences. So you're not a victim, Jake said slowly. You're an operative who got caught in her own operation. Yes, Amara confirmed, and if you want to leave me here, I will understand. I have lied to you, put you at risk, used your protection for my own purposes. You owe me nothing. The cave was quiet except for the distant sound of enemies searching, making their way deeper, getting closer. Jake looked at Tors, then back at Amara. Here's what I think. Jake said finally, I think you're a pain in the ass. I think you've complicated an already complicated mission. I think my commanders are going to have a field day trying to figure out what to do with you. Amara nodded, accepting this. But, Jake continued, I also think you're a professional who got dealt a bad hand. I think you've been straight with us when you could have kept lying. And I think that tracker in my hand just became the most important piece of intelligence in this whole damn region. So no, Jake said firmly, we're not leaving you. We're going to get out of this cave, get back to friendly territory, and let people way above my pay grade figure out the politics. Tors felt relief wash through him. He hadn't realized how much he'd been dreading the possibility of abandoning her. Thank you, Amara said quietly. You do not have to do this. You're right, Jake agreed, but we are anyway, because that's what SEALs do. We complete the mission. And right now, getting you and that tracker to safety is the mission. A grenade explosion rocked the cave system. Dust and debris rained down. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio. They're pushing hard on the left passage. We can't hold much longer. Jake grabbed his rifle. Tors, stay with her, he ordered. I'm going to help Rodriguez. Keep that tracker safe. If we don't make it out, you get it to command. Whatever it takes. As Jake disappeared into the shadows, Tors looked at Amara. She was pale, exhausted, in pain, but her eyes were clear, determined. You should know something too, Tors said, about us, about why we do this. Amara waited. We're not heroes, Tors continued. We're just people trying to do a job, trying to make things a little less terrible, trying to get home alive. And sometimes that means protecting someone who probably wouldn't protect us if the situations were reversed. Amara smiled, sad and knowing. You would be surprised, she said, at who I would protect and why. The sound of gunfire grew louder, closer, and Tors knew the real fight was just beginning. But for the first time since finding her in that village, he felt like he understood who Amara really was. Not an enemy, not an ally, just another soldier, trying to survive, trying to complete a mission, trying to believe there was still something worth fighting for in this broken world. How do you trust an enemy? The defense collapsed faster than Jake had hoped. Rodriguez and Wilson were driven back from the left passage. Davis and Santos were barely holding the right. The enemy was coordinating their assault, using suppressing fire and tactical movement. This wasn't militia training. This was professional military tactics. Volkov's influence was obvious in every maneuver. Fall back to the junction. Jake ordered, we're going to make our stand there. The team consolidated their position. 5 SEALs and 1 injured Iranian captain, surrounded in a cave system with limited ammunition and no immediate extraction options. The math wasn't good, but Jake had been in bad situations before. The key was staying calm, thinking clearly, finding the angle no one else saw. Amara pulled herself into a sitting position, ignoring Tor's protests. She looked at the tactical situation with professional assessment. They will try to flank you, she said. Send men through the side passages while keeping you pinned down here. Classic encirclement. Jake knew she was right. We don't have the numbers to defend all 3 passages, he said. If they get behind us, we're done. Then do not defend, Amara said. Attack. Jake looked at her, skeptical but listening. Volkov is arrogant, she continued. He believes he has you trapped. He will come forward to finish this personally. He wants to see me die. Wants to tell me about his brother before he pulls the trigger. Use that. How? Rodriguez asked. He was reloading. His movements automatic despite the stress. I will draw him in. Amara said. Let him think he has won, that you have abandoned me. When he comes to claim his prize, you ambush him, cut off the head, the body will scatter. It's a terrible plan. Wilson said flatly, you'll be completely exposed. Yes, Amara agreed, I will, but it is the only plan that gives you a chance. Jake studied her face, looking for doubt, for fear. He found neither. You understand what you're offering, he said. You'll be bait, helpless. If this goes wrong, you die first. I understand. Amara replied, and I accept it. Better to die fighting than captured. Better to die with purpose than for nothing. Tors shook his head. There has to be another way, he said. We don't sacrifice people, not even enemy operatives who have been halfway honest with us. There is no other way. Amara said gently, you know this. You are too good a medic, too good a soldier, not to see the reality. The sound of approaching enemies grew louder, closer, organized. They were preparing for a final assault. Jake had maybe 2 minutes to decide, maybe less. He looked at his team, saw exhaustion, determination, trust. They would follow whatever call he made, even if it meant using Amara as bait, even if it meant crossing lines they'd never crossed before. All right, Jake said finally. We do it, but we modify the approach. Tors, you stay with her, not because you're the medic, because you're the best shot with a pistol I've got. If Volkov gets too close, if this goes wrong, you take him out before he can hurt her. Tors nodded, understanding the weight of what was being asked. Rodriguez, Wilson, you're with me. We set up in the left passage, close enough to respond, far enough to stay hidden. Santos, Davis, you take the right, same deal. When Volkov shows himself, we hit him from 3 sides simultaneously. What about me? Amara asked. You do exactly what you've been doing, Jake said. Be injured, be helpless, be exactly what he expects to find. And when I give the signal, you drop flat, because we're going to turn that junction into a kill zone. The team moved into position. Fast and silent, professional, Tors stayed with Amara, his pistol ready, his medical kit closed. She looked at him with something like fondness. You are a good man, she said quietly. Even if you do not believe it. Tors didn't respond, couldn't respond, because she was right. He didn't believe it, didn't believe any of them were good. They just tried to be less terrible than the alternative. Voices echoed down the passages. Russian, Pashto, English, commands being given, positions being called, then silence. The kind of silence that comes before violence, before death, before everything changes forever. A figure appeared at the entrance to the central passage. Tall, lean, moving with predatory confidence, Dmitry Volkov. Even in the dim light, Amara could see the family resemblance to the man she'd killed. The same sharp features, the same cold eyes, the same absolute certainty in his own superiority. "Captain Hassani," Volkov said, his English accented but clear, "how disappointing to find you like this. Broken, abandoned, so much less than the legend I had heard." Amara said nothing, just watched him approach, her face showing pain and fear, exactly what he wanted to see. "My brother spoke of you before he died," Volkov continued. "He said you were soft, that you cried for the boy you saved, that you begged for mercy." Amara's jaw tightened. "Your brother lied," she said. "I did not beg, I acted, and I would do it again." Volkov smiled, cruel and satisfied. "Yes, I believe you would, which is why I will not make his mistake. There will be no interrogation, no chance for heroics, just a bullet, quick, efficient, the way soldiers deserve to die." He raised his pistol, aimed at her head. And in that moment Torres saw something in Amara's eyes, not fear, not resignation, but calculation. She was still thinking, still planning, still fighting even in her final seconds. Now Jake's voice cut through the cave like thunder. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions simultaneously. Volkov dove for cover, but he was fast, trained, dangerous. He returned fire even as he moved, forcing the SEALs to take cover. The junction became chaos. Muzzle flashes in the darkness, the smell of gunpowder, the sound of bullets striking stone. Torres grabbed Amara, pulled her behind a rock outcropping, covered her body with his own. She struggled against him. "No," she shouted, "you must fight, not protect me." But Torres ignored her. His job was clear: keep her alive, keep the tracker safe. Everything else was secondary. The firefight lasted less than a minute, but in that minute everything happened. Wilson took a round through the thigh, Rodriguez's rifle jammed. Santos ran out of ammunition and had to switch to his sidearm. But Jake was ice cold. He maneuvered behind Volkov's position, waited for the perfect moment, and took the shot that ended it. Volkov dropped, not dead, but wounded, his pistol falling from nerveless fingers. The remaining enemy fighters, seeing their leader down, broke and ran. The discipline Volkov had instilled in them shattered the moment he fell. They were mercenaries, not fanatics. Without him, they had no reason to die in a cave. Jake moved to Volkov, kicked the pistol away. The Russian was bleeding from a shoulder wound, serious but not immediately fatal. He looked up at Jake with something like respect. "Good shot," Volkov said through gritted teeth. "Your team is well trained." "Shut up," Jake replied. He wasn't interested in professional courtesy with a man who'd been trying to kill them. Amara pulled free from Torres, crawled over to where Volkov lay. She looked down at him, her face unreadable. "Your brother," she said quietly. "He did not beg either, at the end. He faced death with courage. I respected that, even as I pulled the trigger." Volkov studied her, then nodded slowly. "That is good to know," he said. "And you, Captain, you are everything the stories said, perhaps more." Torres helped Amara back to her position. She was shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off, the pain coming back in waves, but she was alive. They were all alive. Jake checked his team. Wilson's leg wound was manageable. Davis's shoulder was still functional. Everyone else was bruised, exhausted, but operational. "We need to move," Jake said. "That gunfight will draw attention. Every hostile in the valley will know where we are." "What about him?" Rodriguez nodded toward Volkov. "We take him with us." Jake decided. "He's valuable intel, and maybe leverage if we need it." Volkov laughed, a bitter sound. "You think my employers will trade for me?" he asked. "You do not understand this world. I am already dead. The moment I failed to kill the Iranian, I became expendable." "Maybe," Jake said, "but you're coming anyway." "Torres, can he travel?" Torres examined Volkov's wound. "He'll live if we keep the bleeding controlled," he said, "but he won't be happy about it." "That's fine," Jake replied. "I'm not interested in his happiness." They prepared to move out, Santos and Rodriguez carrying Wilson between them, Torres helping Amara. Jake taking point with Volkov stumbling along under armed guard. The cave system had a rear exit, a narrow passage that led down the mountain. It would be a brutal descent, especially with wounded, but it was their only option. As they moved through the darkness, Amara spoke quietly to Tors. "Thank you," she said, "for covering me, for not letting me die. That's the job," Tors replied, but he knew it was more than that. Somewhere in the last few hours, she'd stopped being an objective, stopped being a problem to solve. She'd become something else, a comrade, a fellow soldier, someone worth protecting not because of orders, but because it was right. They emerged from the cave into the gray light of approaching dawn. The valley spread below them, beautiful and deadly. Somewhere out there was safety, extraction, medical care, answers. But first they had to survive the descent, had to stay ahead of the hunters who would surely follow, had to trust each other, even when trust seemed impossible. Especially when trust seemed impossible. What happens when the mission changes? The descent was agony. Every step sent pain shooting through Amara's leg. Every jostle made her vision blur, but she didn't complain, didn't slow them down. She'd been trained for this, trained to endure, to push through pain that would break ordinary people. Tor stayed close, monitoring her, adjusting her splint, giving her water and pain medication when he could. He was good at his job, maybe too good, because he saw things she tried to hide. The way her hands trembled when she thought no one was watching. The way her breathing became shallow when the pain spiked. The way her eyes lost focus for seconds at a time. "We need to rest," Tors said to Jake. "She's reaching her limit. We're all reaching our limit," Jake replied, but he called a halt anyway, found a defensible position among the rocks, posted guards, let his team breathe for a moment. Volkov sat apart from the group, his hands zip-tied behind his back, his shoulder roughly bandaged. He watched everything with the calm assessment of a professional, studying the Americans, learning their patterns, their weaknesses. Jake didn't like having him along, but intelligence from a man like Volkov could be invaluable if they could get him to talk. Rodriguez approached Jake, spoke quietly so the others couldn't hear. "That tracker she gave us," he said, "how do we know it's real? How do we know this whole thing isn't some elaborate setup?" "We don't," Jake admitted, "but her story checks out. The stolen tech from Kandahar, the weapons trafficking network. Command's been tracking this for months. She might be our first real break. Or she might be playing us," Rodriguez countered, "using us to eliminate her enemies, leading us into a trap." "It's possible," Jake agreed, "but my gut says she's legitimate, that she really is trying to stop this sale, that she really did get caught in her own operation." "Your gut," Rodriguez said, "with all due respect, Chief, your gut doesn't stop bullets." Jake smiled grimly. "No, but good instincts keep you alive longer than paranoia. We move forward with the assumption she's telling the truth, but we stay alert, stay ready. If this goes sideways, we adapt." Rodriguez nodded. That was the SEAL way. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, adapt to whatever actually happens. Tors was changing Amara's bandages when she suddenly grabbed his wrist. Her grip weak but urgent. "The tracker," she whispered, "it is more than just a locator." "What do you mean?" Tors asked. "It also contains encrypted files," she said. "Communications between Nazari and his buyers, evidence of corruption within your military, names of people involved in the theft. If those files become public, it will end careers, destroy reputations, create a scandal that reaches the highest levels." "You're saying there are people who want this buried," Tors said, understanding immediately. "Powerful people who would rather see us dead than let this information surface." "Yes," Amara confirmed, "which is why you cannot trust everyone at your base, why you must be very careful who you give the tracker to, why this mission has become more dangerous than your commander realizes." Tors looked over at Jake, considering whether to share this new information. But Amara shook her head. "Not yet," she said. "He has enough to worry about. When the time is right, when we are closer to safety, then tell him, but not now, not when he must focus on keeping everyone alive against his better judgment." Tors agreed. He finished her bandages in silence, his mind racing with implications. They moved out again after 20 minutes. The sun was fully up now, exposing them to anyone with eyes on the valley. Jake pushed the pace, trading caution for speed. They needed to reach the extraction point before nightfall, before enemy reinforcements could cut them off, before exhaustion made them sloppy. Wilson was struggling. His leg wound was worse than he'd admitted. Santos practically carried him. Rodriguez took point, his eyes scanning for threats. Davis, despite his shoulder wound, maintained rear security. They were a wounded, depleted team, but they were still operational, still dangerous. Amara watched them work together, saw the trust, the coordination, the unspoken communication that came from years of training and combat. It reminded her of her own team, the operators she'd worked with before going undercover, the men and women she hadn't seen in 8 months. She wondered if they thought she was dead, if her commanders had written her off as a loss, if anyone would believe the report she'd eventually file. A helicopter appeared in the distance. American. Jake immediately called it in, identified his team, requested close air support. The response was not what he wanted to hear, negative on the air support. The voice crackled through his radio. Weather's closing in from the west. All flights are grounded until further notice. You're on your own until tomorrow at earliest. Jake swore under his breath. Tomorrow might as well be next year. They didn't have that kind of time. He looked at his team, at the wounded, at Amara and Volkov, at the impossible situation they were in, and he made a decision. We're changing the plan, he announced. We can't reach the primary extraction point, not in our condition, not before enemy forces catch up. So we're going to ground, find a defensible position, and wait for the weather to clear. That's suicide. Rodriguez said. We'll be sitting ducks. Maybe, Jake replied, but we're dead ducks if we keep moving, at least this way. We choose our ground, we set the terms, we have a chance. Where? Davis asked. Where do we make our stand? Amara spoke up, her voice weak but clear. There is a compound, she said, 2 kilometers north, an old Soviet outpost from the 80s, abandoned now. But the walls are still strong. There is water, cover, good fields of fire. How do you know this? Wilson asked through gritted teeth. Because I used it as a safe house. Amara replied, 3 months ago, when I first infiltrated this region. I cached supplies there, weapons, medical equipment, communication gear. If it has not been discovered, it could save us. Jake looked at Tors. The medic shrugged. At this point, he said, I'm willing to try anything. We need real shelter, real supplies, or we're not going to make it. All right, Jake decided. We go to the compound, but if this is a trap, if enemy forces are waiting for us there, I'm putting a bullet in you first. He looked directly at Amara as he said it, not threatening, just stating a fact. She nodded, understanding, accepting. I would expect nothing less, she replied. They changed direction, heading north. The terrain got rougher, more exposed, but Amara's directions were precise, confident. After 90 minutes of hard movement, the compound came into view exactly as she described. Old Soviet construction, concrete walls pocked with bullet holes, a central courtyard, perimeter defenses that had weathered decades of neglect. It looked abandoned, but Jake wasn't taking chances. Rodriguez and Santos went in first, cleared the buildings one by one, found no enemies, but they did find Amara's cache, exactly where she said it would be. Weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, even food and water, enough to sustain them for days if necessary. Jake felt some of his tension ease. She'd been telling the truth, about this at least. They secured the compound, set up defensive positions. Tors immediately went to work on the wounded with real medical supplies. He could properly treat Wilson's leg, Davis's shoulder, even Amara's broken bone. The compound had a small room that served as a makeshift clinic. Tors cleaned it out, set up his equipment, and went to work with the focus of a man who knew every second counted. Amara was his most serious case. The temporary splint had done its job, but the break needed to be properly set, immobilized, protected from further damage. This is going to hurt, Tors warned. Worse than before, I know. Amara replied, do what you must. She bit down on a roll of bandage as Tors worked. Her body went rigid with pain, but she didn't scream, didn't thrash, just endured it with the stoic determination of a professional soldier. When he was done, Torres gave her strong pain medication, antibiotics to prevent infection, fluids to combat dehydration. She's stable, he reported to Jake, but she needs evacuation soon. Another day or two and I can't guarantee the outcome. Understood, Jake said. We hold here until the weather clears, then we get everyone out. All of us, Americans, Iranians, even our Russian friend. Volkov watched this with interest. You would evacuate an enemy operative, he said. Give her the same care as your own people. Why? Because that's what we do, Jake replied. We don't leave people behind, not our people, not wounded prisoners, not even operatives from countries we're technically opposed to. It's called having principles. You should try it sometime. Volkov smiled, but there was no humor in it. Principles, he said, are a luxury in this world, a weakness that gets good soldiers killed. Maybe, Jake said, but they're also what separates us from animals, what makes us worth saving. You can keep your cynicism, I'll keep my principles. As night fell over the compound, the team settled in, exhausted but alive, wounded but functional. They ate from Amara's cache, shared stories in quiet voices, pretended for a moment that they were anywhere but a Soviet ruin in hostile territory, waiting for weather to clear, waiting for extraction, waiting for whatever came next. Torres sat with Amara as she drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain medication making her drowsy. At one point she opened her eyes, looked at him with surprising clarity. You asked who I really am, she said softly. I will tell you. I am someone who believed in service, in duty, in protecting innocent people from those who would hurt them. I am someone who has done terrible things for what I thought were good reasons. I am someone who is not sure anymore if the cost was worth it. If anything I did mattered. It mattered, Torres said quietly, that tracker. The intelligence you gathered, it's going to save lives, stop weapons from reaching terrorists. That's not nothing, she smiled. Sad and tired, perhaps, she said. Or perhaps I am just another soldier, fighting a war that will never end, making sacrifices that will never be remembered, dying for causes that will be forgotten before my body is cold. Torres didn't have an answer for that because deep down, he feared she was right, that all of this, all the fighting and bleeding and dying, was just noise in an endless cycle of violence. But he couldn't let himself believe that, couldn't let the darkness win, so he did what he always did. He focused on the immediate, the tangible, the wound that needed dressing, the patient who needed care, the moment he could control. Outside, the wind picked up, bringing the promised storm. Rain began to fall, drumming against the old concrete, washing away blood and dust and evidence of the day's violence. Inside the compound, a SEAL team and an Iranian captain waited together, enemies who had become allies, strangers who had become comrades, human beings trying to survive in a world that seemed determined to break them. And somewhere in that shared struggle, in that mutual sacrifice, they found something worth holding onto, something that transcended nationality or politics or the lies they'd all been told about who the enemy was supposed to be. They found each other's humanity. When does an enemy become an ally? The storm raged through the night. Wind howled through broken windows. Rain pounded the old Soviet walls inside the compound. The team took shifts on watch, 2 hours on, 4 hours off, trying to steal sleep in the brief moments when adrenaline allowed. Torres checked on his patients every hour. Wilson's leg was stable. Davis's shoulder showed no signs of infection. Volkov was sullen but healing. And Amara, she was the one who worried him most. Her fever had spiked during the night, not catastrophically but enough to concern him. Infection was always a risk with compound fractures, even with antibiotics. He'd done everything right, set the break properly, cleaned the wound, administered medication, but combat medicine wasn't hospital medicine. And this cave, this ruin, it wasn't a sterile environment. He could only do so much. She woke around 300, disoriented from fever and pain medication, spoke in Farsi. Words Torres couldn't understand, but he recognized delirium when he saw it. He cooled her forehead with wet cloth, spoke soothingly, kept her calm. Eventually she settled, drifted back into uneasy sleep. He stayed with her, monitoring her breathing, her pulse, the subtle signs that would tell him if she was declining. Jake found him there at dawn, sitting beside Amara's makeshift bed, looking exhausted. "How is she?" Jake asked quietly. "Holding on," Torres replied, "but we need to get her out of here, soon, today if possible." Jake nodded. "The weather's clearing," he said. "I've got confirmation that extraction birds will be airborne by 900. We should have pickup within 3 hours." "That's the good news," Torres said. "What's the bad news?" "The bad news," Jake replied, "is that the tracker Amara gave us. I sent the data to command and they want us to conduct one more operation before extraction." Torres looked up sharply. "You're kidding." "Wish I was," Jake said. "The stolen tech, it's being moved today, right now. From Nazari's compound to a border crossing. If we can hit the convoy, recover the equipment, it'll be the biggest intel win of the year." "And if we don't?" Torres asked. "Then it crosses into Pakistan," Jake said, "disappears into the black market, ends up with whoever can pay, terrorist groups, rogue states, people who will use it to kill Americans and allies and anyone else who gets in their way." Torres stood, his jaw tight. "So command wants us to risk 5 wounded operators," he said, "and an injured prisoner to chase down a convoy, when extraction is hours away, when we could just leave and let someone else handle it." "Yes," Jake said simply. "That's exactly what they want." Torres shook his head. "This is insane, Jake. We barely made it this far. Wilson can't walk without help. Davis can barely lift his rifle. Amara needs a hospital, and you want us to go on the offensive." "I don't want anything," Jake replied. "I'm just telling you what command said. The decision is mine to make. And I'm asking the team, putting it to a vote, because this isn't a standard op. This is volunteering to do something dangerous when we could walk away." Torres looked down at Amara, still unconscious, still vulnerable. "What does she say about all this?" he asked. "She hasn't been coherent enough to ask," Jake admitted, "but I think I know what she'd say. She'd say do it, complete the mission, don't let 8 months of her work be for nothing." Torres knew Jake was right. Amara would absolutely say that, would probably try to go with them if she could. That's who she was, mission first, always. "Let me check the others," Torres said. "See who's fit for duty." Jake nodded. "We move in 30 minutes, he said. "If we're doing this, we do it fast, before Nazari realizes we're still operational, before his reinforcements arrive, before this window closes." Torres moved through the compound, assessed his patients with clinical detachment. Wilson couldn't go. His leg wouldn't support him in combat. Davis could manage, barely, but he'd be slower, less effective. Volkov was still a prisoner, still a liability. That left 4 effective operators: Jake, Rodriguez, Santos, and Torres himself. "We're going," Jake announced when Torres reported back. "4 of us will hit the convoy. Wilson stays here with Davis, guards the compound, guards our prisoners, both of them." He looked pointedly at Amara and Volkov. "You have a problem with that?" Davis shook his head. "My shoulder's functional enough for guard duty," he said. "We'll hold the position." Rodriguez spoke up. "If we're doing this," he said, "we need to understand what we're up against. The convoy will be heavily guarded. Nazari knows the value of what he's carrying. He'll have professional security, maybe even Volkov's remaining mercenaries. Which is why we don't attack directly," Jake said. "We use Amara's intelligence. Set up an ambush at a choke point, hit them hard, grab the tech, disappear before they can respond, fast and surgical, in and out in under 5 minutes. It's a good plan," Santos said, "if everything goes right." "And how often does everything go right?" Rodriguez asked dryly. "Never," Jake admitted, "which is why we plan for it to go wrong. We have fallback positions, extraction routes, and if it gets too hot, we abandon the objective, come back here, get our people out. The tech isn't worth American lives." Torres woke Amara, needed her lucid for a few minutes, needed information she might have. She blinked up at him, her eyes fever bright but focused. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "We're going after the convoy," Torres explained. "The one moving your stolen tech. We need to know the route, the security, anything you can tell us." Amara tried to sit up, failed, fell back with a gasp of pain. "You cannot," she said. "It is too dangerous, too many guards, you will be killed." "Probably," Torres agreed, "but we're doing it anyway, so help us do it smart. Help us survive it." She closed her eyes, thinking. When she opened them, she spoke rapidly, professionally. giving them everything she knew: the convoy route, the timing, the number of vehicles, the type of security detail. She described the choke point Jake had mentioned, a narrow mountain pass where the road curved sharply, where an ambush would be most effective. "There will be a scout vehicle," she said, "traveling ahead of the convoy. You must neutralize it first, quietly, without alerting the main group. Then, when the convoy enters the pass, you must disable the lead and rear vehicles, trap them, force them into a killing zone." Jake listened, memorizing every detail. Rodriguez took notes. Santos studied the map Amara described. It was solid intelligence, professional, exactly what they needed. "One more thing," Amara said, reaching for Tor's hand, the convoy commander. "He is a former Pakistani intelligence officer named Khan. He is smart, experienced, ruthless. Do not underestimate him. If he senses a trap, he will not hesitate to destroy the tech rather than let you recover it. Understood?" Jake said, "We'll factor that in." Amara held Tor's gaze. "Please," she said, "come back, all of you. Do not die for this. I have already lost too much. I cannot lose you as well." The words surprised Tors, the raw emotion behind them. She barely knew them, had spent less than 48 hours in their company, but combat did that. Compressed relationships, forged bonds that would take years in the normal world. They weren't strangers anymore. They were something else, something harder to define. "We'll come back," Tors promised, though he had no right to make such a promise. No way of knowing if he could keep it. "Stay alive while we're gone, that's your job, just stay alive." She smiled weakly. "I will try," she said, "but if I do not, if the fever takes me, tell your commanders the tracker has more information than they realize. Codes, accounts, evidence that will shake your military to its foundation. Use it wisely, use it well." The 4 SEALs moved out at 700, leaving Davis and Wilson to guard the compound. Tors gave Davis detailed instructions on Amara's care, what medications to give, when to give them, what signs to watch for. Davis nodded, taking it all seriously. "I've got her," he said. "You just focus on not getting shot." "Easier said than done," Tors replied. The movement to the ambush site took 90 minutes, hard, fast terrain. They established their position with practiced efficiency. Rodriguez with the long gun, taking high ground for overwatch. Santos with demolitions, preparing charges to disable vehicles. Jake and Tors with assault rifles, ready for close quarters work. They synchronized watches, reviewed the plan, waited. The scout vehicle appeared exactly when Amara said it would. A single truck, 2 men inside. Rodriguez took them both with precise shots. The vehicle rolled to a stop, silent. The men inside dead before they knew they were targeted. The team moved the truck off the road, hid the bodies, erased evidence of the ambush. When the convoy arrived, everything would look normal until it didn't. 20 minutes later, the convoy came into view, 3 heavy trucks, armored, moving in tight formation. Jake counted at least 12 security personnel, maybe more inside the vehicles. The odds were not good, but they'd faced worse. He gave the signal. Santos detonated his charges. The explosions were perfectly timed, taking out the lead and rear vehicles simultaneously. The middle truck, carrying the tech, slammed on its brakes, trapped between burning wreckage. The security team responded instantly, piling out of vehicles, taking positions, returning fire. This wasn't militia. This was professional military contractors. The firefight was intense, sustained, disciplined. Rodriguez picked off targets from his overwatch position. Santos moved to flank. Jake and Tors pressed forward, using the terrain, using their training, using every advantage they had. Khan, the Pakistani commander, was everything Amara said he would be. He organized his men, directed fire, tried to establish a defense, but he was outnumbered in tactical skill. The SEALs weren't just good, they were exceptional. Every movement coordinated, every shot placed, every decision calculated. Within 4 minutes, half the security team was down, the rest were falling back, breaking. But Khan didn't run. He moved to the tech truck, placed charges on the cargo. Jake saw what he was doing, realized the threat. Khan was going to destroy everything rather than let it be captured. Jake sprinted forward, fired, hit Khan in the shoulder. The Pakistani officer fell, but his hand was still on the detonator, still able to complete his mission. Torres got there first, kicked the detonator away, covered Khan with his rifle. "Don't move," Torres ordered. "It's over." Khan looked up at him, blood streaming from his shoulder, smiled grimly. "Is it?" he asked. "Do you even know what you are protecting? Do you know whose careers will end when that intelligence becomes public? Do you know the powerful men who want you dead right now?" "I know enough," Torres replied. "I know it's my job to complete this mission. The rest isn't my concern." Khan laughed, bitter and pained. "You are a fool," he said. "You think your commanders will reward you, protect you. They will make you disappear, all of you. Because dead men cannot testify." Torres ignored him, secured him with zip ties, moved to check the cargo. The stolen tech was there, all of it, packed carefully. Ready for transport. Jake called in their success, requested immediate extraction. The response was swift. Birds were already en route, ETA 10 minutes. They consolidated their position, guarded the tech, waited for pickup. Rodriguez took a round through his vest, bruised ribs but no penetration. Santos had a graze across his forearm. Minor. Jake was untouched. Torres was operating on pure adrenaline, ignoring the exhaustion, the fear, the knowledge that Khan's words might be true. The extraction helicopters arrived on schedule. 2 Black Hawks, armed and ready. They loaded the tech, loaded Khan and his surviving security personnel, the wounded, the living, the captured, everyone going out, everyone heading to safety. As they lifted off, Torres looked down at the burning convoy, at the bodies, at the evidence of violence that would fade with time but never really disappear. The flight back to base took 40 minutes, long enough for Torres to think, to process, to wonder what came next. They landed at a forward operating base, were immediately surrounded by security, intelligence officers, medical personnel. The tech was whisked away. Khan and his men separated, interrogated. The SEALs were debriefed, asked questions, given preliminary medical treatment. And Amara, she was already there, evacuated from the compound during their operation, being treated in the base hospital. Torres found her in a private room, guarded but alive. Her fever had broken, her leg was properly casted. She would walk again, would heal, would return to whatever life waited for her in Iran. She opened her eyes when he entered, smiled. "You came back," she said. "I told you I would," Torres replied. "Did you get it?" she asked. "The tech, the evidence." "We got it," Torres confirmed, "all of it. Your 8 months of work, it's going to make a difference." She nodded, satisfied. "Then it was worth it," she said, "all of it. Every lie, every moment of fear, every sacrifice. If it stops even one weapon from reaching the wrong hands, it was worth it." Torres sat beside her bed, tired beyond words. "What happens now?" he asked. "To you, to us, to all of this?" Amara was quiet for a moment. "I will be sent home," she finally said, debriefed, questioned, eventually promoted or imprisoned depending on how my superiors view my actions. "You will return to your team, complete other missions. Forget about the Iranian captain you saved in Afghanistan, and the world will continue turning, as it always does." "I won't forget," Torres said. "None of us will. You're part of our story now, whether we like it or not." She reached for his hand, squeezed it gently. "And you are part of mine," she said. "The Americans who showed me that enemies can be decent, that soldiers on opposite sides can still recognize each other's humanity, that the divisions between us are real, but not insurmountable." 6 months later, Torres received a message through official channels. Captain Amara Hassani had recovered fully, had been promoted. The intelligence from their joint operation had disrupted 3 major weapons trafficking networks, and most significantly, had opened new channels for cooperation between American and Iranian special operations units, focused on combating terrorism in the region. The letter was brief, professional, but it ended with a personal note, written in her hand. "Thank you for saving my life, but more importantly, thank you for treating me like a soldier, like an equal, like a human being. In a world that so often demands we see only enemies, you reminded me we are all just people trying to survive, trying to do the right thing, trying to make the darkness a little less dark. I will not forget, and I hope, someday, our nations will find a way to work together as we did, with mutual respect, shared purpose, and recognition of our common humanity." Until then, stay safe, stay strong, and know that somewhere, an Iranian captain remembers the American medic who showed her kindness when he had no reason to. Amara. Torres kept the letter, tucked it in his personal kit, a reminder that even in the midst of endless war, even in the complex world of modern conflict, there was still room for cooperation, for trust, for seeing the person behind the uniform, behind the nationality, behind the politics and policies and all the reasons they were supposed to be enemies. The official reports of the mission were heavily classified, but the story lived on, shared quietly among special operations units. The injured Iranian captain who helped a SEAL team recover critical technology, the enemies who became allies, the soldiers who proved that today's adversary might be tomorrow's partner, that the most important victories weren't won with bullets, but with the willingness to recognize humanity in unexpected places. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts, and in acting, it transforms everything, turns strangers into comrades, enemies into allies, fear into trust, and reminds us that even in the darkest valleys, even in the midst of violence and chaos, we are all just human beings, trying to find our way home, trying to believe there's still something worth fighting for, trying to hold on to hope when hope seems impossible. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.